With a history stretching back millennia, Spain is a country whose historical legacy is as vast as it is fundamental to understanding much of the origin and evolution of Western society. From the golden age of Al-Andalus to the discovery of the New World, Spain has been a melting pot of cultures and a beacon of innovation. Its cities are open history books. Cordoba displays the grandeur of the Umayyad Caliphate. Granada surprises with the beauty of the Alhambra, and Santiago de Compostela, among others, attracts pilgrims from all over the world. This country has been a melting pot of civilizations, a bridge between continents, and home to some of the most brilliant minds in art, literature, and exploration. Spain has been home to Iberians and Celts, Roman province, Visigothic kingdom, Muslim emirate, and world power. Its cities are living witnesses to this great history. From Roman Merida, with its impressive theatre, to modernist Barcelona or Imperial Madrid with its majestic palaces. Today in Fascinating Culture we embark on the exciting mission of showing the true essence of Spain. A journey through the essential places that define the history of a unique country in the world. Our first destination on our route through Spain is Segovia, one of the country's historical jewels, located in the autonomous community of Castile and León. Its historical and cultural relevance has made it a must-see destination for those who wish to delve into the great history of Spain. Founded in pre-Roman times, it has witnessed countless events that have marked its evolution over the centuries. Its architectural legacy reflects the influence of different cultures, and two of its most emblematic monuments, the Segovia Aqueduct and the Alcázar, are symbols of the city's grandeur and splendor. One of the wonders of Roman engineering, the Segovia Aqueduct is perhaps the city's most famous monument. It is believed to have been built in the late 1st century AD or early 2nd century under the rule of the emperors Vespasian and Trajan. The main function of this aqueduct was to supply water to the city from the Guadarrama mountain range. The construction is an extraordinary example of the technical skill of the Romans, with a total length of 15 kilometers. The best-known part of the aqueduct is the section of stone arches that runs through the center of Segovia, especially its highest section, which reaches almost 29 meters. The aqueduct was built without the use of mortar, which further highlights the mastery of the Roman engineers. The granite stones were assembled with such precision that the aqueduct has remained standing for more than 2,000 years, despite the inclemency of the weather and several attempts at destruction. In addition to its function of transporting water, over time the aqueduct has become a symbol of Segovia's identity, and a living testimony to the Roman presence on the Iberian Peninsula. Segovia Cathedral, known as the Lady of Cathedrals, is a masterpiece of late Spanish Gothic architecture that stands majestically in the historic center of the city. Built between the 16th and 18th centuries, its imposing silhouette dominates the Plaza Mayor, with its 88-meter-high bell tower a particular highlight. The purity of its Gothic style is evident in the verticality of its columns, the delicacy of its vaults, and the intricate details of its facade, which evoke the grandeur of medieval religious architecture. Its interior is equally impressive, with a vast central nave that seems infinite when illuminated by the dazzling stained glass windows that bathe the space in vibrant light. Among its treasures are a series of side chapels richly decorated with Renaissance color and a priceless collection of sacred art. In addition, the serenity of the interior invites reflection, making Segovia Cathedral not only an architectural monument but also a place of deep spirituality. Another of Segovia's most impressive monuments is its Alcázar, a fortress that has played a crucial role in the history of Spain. Its original construction dates back to the 12th century, although it has undergone several modifications and extensions over the centuries. The Alcázar stands majestically on a hill between the rivers Eresma and Clamores, giving it a key strategic position in the defense of the city. Although its origin as a fortification dates back to Islamic times, the structure that can be admired today is mostly from the Middle Ages, when the Castilian monarchs used the Alcázar as a royal residence. The Alcázar of Segovia not only served as a defensive fortress but was also the scene of important historic moments. This was the place where Isabella the Catholic was proclaimed Queen of Castile in 1474, an event that marked a turning point in the history of Spain. The Alcázar also served as a prison for several centuries and later as the Royal Artillery College.
Burgos, located in the heart of Castilla-León, is a city steeped in history and legend that is fundamental to understanding the development of Spain's identity. Founded in 884 by Count Diego Rodriguez as part of the defense strategy of the Christian kingdoms against Muslim domination, Burgos quickly established itself as a crucial enclave in the Reconquest and as one of the most influential cities in the peninsula. Its rich history is evident in its architecture, culture, and historical figures such as the famous Cid Campeador, one of the most iconic figures of the Spanish Middle Ages. El Cid Campeador, whose real name was Rodrigo Díaz de Vivo, was probably born in the nearby town of Vivar del Cid in the 11th century, and is one of the most revered heroes in Spanish history. However, if there is one monument that defines the identity of Burgos, it is its majestic cathedral of Santa Maria, one of the most remarkable examples of the Gothic style in Europe. Construction of the cathedral began in 1221 under the reign of Ferdinand III of Castile and Bishop Mauricio, and continued for several centuries. The cathedral was built in response to the desire of Ferdinand III to erect a monumental temple that reflected the power and piety of the Kingdom of Castile, and its design was inspired by the great French Gothic cathedrals such as that of Reims. In 1984 it was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in recognition of its historical and artistic value. The Cathedral of Burgos is famous for its impressive architecture and the richness of its artistic details. The main facade, known as the Puerta del Perdón, Door of Forgiveness, stands out for its two slender towers crowned by open-work spires, which rise to a height of almost 85 m, giving the cathedral an image of lightness and verticality. The interior of the temple is no less impressive. With its large central nave and side chapels decorated with sculptures and works of art of great value. Among the jewels housed in the cathedral is the Dome of the Transept, a masterpiece of the Renaissance, as well as the famous Golden Staircase, designed by the architect Diego Silo in the 16th century. Another of the most significant spaces inside the cathedral is the Capilla de los Condestables, Chapel of the Constables, built in the 15th century by order of the Constables of Castile. This chapel, richly decorated with sculptures and stained glass windows, houses the tombs of Pedro Fernández de Velasco and his wife, and is a symbol of the power of this noble family in the Castilian court. In addition, the cathedral houses the remains of the Cid Campeador and his wife Dona Jimena, who rest in the transept, which makes this temple not only a religious center, but also a place of pilgrimage for those who admire the figure of the Cid. León, a city with a deep historical legacy in northwest Spain, is one of the most important capitals in Spain's medieval history. Founded as a Roman military camp in the 1st century BC, its strategic location at the confluence of military and trade routes was key to its development. In time, León became a key nucleus of the Kingdom of León, one of the Christian kingdoms that led the Reconquest against the Muslims. Its historical importance is reflected mainly in its architecture, culture, and the grandeur of its monuments, among which its great Gothic cathedral, the Cathedral de León, stands out above all others. This impressive monument is one of the masterpieces of Gothic architecture in Spain and Europe. Its construction began in the 13th century under the reign of Alfonso X the Wise on the site of a former Romanesque church and, before that, Roman baths. Inspired mainly by French Gothic cathedrals such as Reims and Chartres, the Cathedral of Lyon is characterized by its great verticality, its slender towers, and above all by its spectacular stained glass windows that occupy more than 1,800 square meters, making it a prodigy of light and color. These stained glass windows, among the most beautiful in European Gothic, have been fundamental for the cathedral to be known as the House of Light. The cathedral was built with the aim of being a symbol of power and Christian faith in the north of Spain during the Reconquest. Its construction was marked in a context in which the Christian kingdoms of the peninsula were consolidating their dominion over Muslim power, and Lyon, as the capital of one of the most important kingdoms of the time, needed a temple that reflected its political and religious relevance. During the 13th and 14th centuries, the cathedral was embellished with the addition of more stained glass windows and sculptural elements, becoming a total work of art that represents the values and spirituality of the Gothic period. One of the most important elements of the Cathedral of Lyon is its western facade, which presents three large portals, each one decorated with sculptures narrating scenes from the Old and New Testament. The most outstanding is the Portal of the Last Judgment, located in the center, which depicts Christ surrounded by the elect and the damned. Lyon's importance also lies in its position on the Camino de Santiago, the famous pilgrimage route that attracted thousands of pilgrims to the tomb of the Apostle Santiago in Compostela. Throughout the Middle Ages, the passage of pilgrims turned Lyon into a neuralgic point, which favored its economic growth and cultural wealth. Our journey through historic Spain takes us on this occasion to the Altamira caves. Located near Santillana del Mar in Cantabria, these caves are one of the most important prehistoric cave art sites in the world. They were discovered in 1868 by a local hunter and later studied by the archaeologist Marcelino Sanchez Orchuola in 1879. These caves contain paintings dating from between 35,000 and 13,000 years ago and belong to the Paleolithic period. These paintings represent one of the earliest and most complex manifestations of human art, showing the artistic and symbolic skill of the first inhabitants of Europe. The historical and archaeological value of the Altamira caves lies in these extraordinary cave paintings, which mainly depict bison, horses, deer, and human hands. What makes the Altamira paintings exceptional is the precision and realism with which the animals are depicted, employing advanced techniques such as the use of perspective and shading, which gives the figures a striking sense of volume and movement. In addition, the vibrant colors, mainly black reds and ochres, were achieved by means of natural pigments applied with unusual skill for the period. In 1985, the caves were declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, underlining their global importance. Oviedo, capital of the Principality of Asturias, is a city full of history and culture, key to the formation of the Kingdom of Asturias and the development of the Reconquest. Oviedo Cathedral, in Gothic style, is one of the city's most emblematic monuments. Its construction began in the 14th century on the site of an earlier pre-Romanesque church and continued for several centuries, which explains the mixture of styles it displays. Oviedo is also famous for its collection of pre-Romanesque churches. These unique monuments have been declared World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. These churches were built during the reign of Asturias and bear witness to a unique architecture found nowhere else in Europe. Two of them stand out, Santa Maria del Naranco and San Miguel de Lillo, both located on Mount Naranco, on the outskirts of the city and built during the reign of Ramiro I in the 9th century. Santa Maria del Naranco was originally conceived as a royal palace and not as a church. Its religious function came later when it was consecrated. What makes this building special is its unique architecture, with a design that anticipates elements of Romanesque art. The building stands out for its two-level structure, with large semicircular arches and elegant decoration combining geometric and vegetal elements. The beauty and uniqueness of Santa Maria del Naranco make it a masterpiece of European pre-Romanesque art. San Miguel de Lillo, on the other hand, was originally conceived as a church and is located very close to Santa Maria del Naranco. Although much of the original church has been lost, the facade and the first sections of the nave that remain offer a clear example of the Asturian architectural style, with decorated capitals and a sense of proportion that anticipates the Romanesque constructions that would emerge centuries later. Both monuments are outstanding examples of the creative capacity of the Asturian monarchy and its desire to consolidate its own art that would reflect the independence and power of the kingdom. Located in the heart of the Picos de Europa in the region of Asturias, Covadonga is one of the most emblematic places in the history of Spain. It is known not only for its stunning natural landscape, but also for its importance in the origins of the Kingdom of Asturias and for being the place where the Reconquest began, the process by which the Christian kingdoms of the north of the Iberian Peninsula began to recover the territories occupied by the Muslims after the invasion of 711. In this context, Covadonga has been considered the scene of one of the first and most symbolic confrontations between Christians and Muslims. The key figure in the history of Covadonga is Don Pelayo, a Visigoth nobleman who, after the fall of the kingdom into the hands of the Muslims, took refuge in the Asturian mountains and organized the Christian resistance. According to tradition, it was in 722 that Pelayo and a small group of Asturians fought and defeated the Muslim army in the Battle of Covadonga, marking the beginning of the Reconquest. Although the scale of the battle and the size of the armies vary according to the sources, what is clear is that this event was a fundamental milestone not only for Asturias, but for the history of Spain as a whole, laying the foundations for Christian resistance that would last for centuries. The cave of Covadonga, located in a natural grotto in the mountain, is the spiritual heart of the place. Inside is a small chapel known as the Sanctuary of Covadonga, which houses the figure of the Virgin of Covadonga, also known as the Santina, the patron saint of Asturias. This Virgin is a symbol of Asturian resistance and of the divine protection that, according to tradition, helped Don Pelayo in his victory. The cave and the sanctuary are pilgrimage destinations, and every year thousands of the faithful and tourists visit the site to pay homage to the Virgin and the history that was forged there. A few steps from the cave is the imposing Basilica of Covadonga, a neo-Romanesque church built between 1877 and 1901 to commemorate the historical and religious events associated with the site. Its pink color, due to the limestone of the area from which it was built, stands out against the mountainous landscape of the Picos de Europa, offering a spectacular view. Santiago de Compostela, capital of the autonomous community of Galicia in northwest Spain, is a city of great historical, cultural and religious importance. Its origin is deeply linked to the figure of the Apostle James the Greater, one of the 12 disciples of Christ. According to Christian tradition, the apostle's body was taken to Galicia after his martyrdom in Jerusalem, and centuries later his tomb was discovered in what is now Santiago de Compostela. This discovery around the year 813 triggered the foundation of the city, which would become one of the main pilgrimage centers of the Christian world alongside Jerusalem and Rome. The religious importance of Santiago de Compostela was quickly consolidated after the discovery of the apostle's tomb. Alfonso II, King of Asturias, was the first monarch to make a pilgrimage to this site, and under his reign a first church was erected over the tomb. Over time, the small community that formed around the shrine grew into a town, which became a magnet for pilgrims from all corners of Europe. This constant flow of devotees fueled the development of the Jacobean route or Way of St. James, which is still one of the most important and emblematic pilgrimage routes today. The Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, whose construction began in 1075 under King Alfonso VI and Bishop Diego Pelores, is the heart of the city. This Romanesque-style cathedral, which has later Gothic, Renaissance and Baroque elements, was built to house the remains of the Apostle St. James, and has become a symbol of the Christian faith. Its location in the monumental Plaza del Obradoiro makes it the nerve center of Santiago, and it is a point of reference for pilgrims and tourists alike. Among the most important parts of the cathedral is its Baroque facade, built in the 18th century by the architects Fernando de Casas Novoa and Domingo de Andrade. This facade, known as the Obradoiro facade, is the most iconic image of the temple, standing out for its majesty and detailed ornamentation. The interior of the cathedral is equally impressive. The Portico de la Gloria is a masterpiece of Romanesque art sculpted by the master Matteo in the 12th century. This portico is located at the western entrance of the cathedral, and is famous for its rich iconography depicting the Last Judgment and other biblical scenes. In the center of the cathedral's main nave, just below the high altar, is the crypt where the tomb of the Apostle St. James is kept, the final destination of millions of pilgrims over the centuries. Barcelona, capital of the autonomous community of Catalonia, is one of the most important cities in Spain. It is a city with a long history and an exceptional cultural heritage. Situated on the Mediterranean coast, the city has been a political, economic and cultural center since Roman times, when it was founded as Barcino in the 1st century BC. Under Roman rule, the city prospered as an important colony, and remains of the city walls and urban layout can still be seen today in the Gothic Quarter, one of the oldest parts of the city. Barcelona eventually became a key center of the Kingdom of Aragon, and in the Middle Ages it was one of the busiest ports in the Mediterranean, which boosted its development and wealth. One of Barcelona's most iconic monuments is the Basilica of the Sagrada Familia, a masterpiece of Catalan modernism designed by the architect Antoni Gaudí. Construction of the basilica began in 1882, and it is still under construction today, making it one of the longest architectural projects in history. The Sagrada Familia is famous for its unique style, which combines Gothic and Art Nouveau elements with forms inspired by nature. Its imposing towers and complex facade decorated with religious scenes have made this temple one of the most recognizable symbols of the city, as well as being named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Gothic Quarter is another of Barcelona's great attractions. In this labyrinth of narrow streets and medieval squares, visitors can find vestiges of the city's Roman and medieval past. At the heart of the neighborhood is the Cathedral of Santa Cruz and Santa Eulalia, an impressive 12th century Gothic church dedicated to Santa Eulalia, the city's patron saint. This cathedral is notable for its majestic cloister and chapels, as well as its ornate facade overlooking the Plaza de la Catedral. This neighborhood is also home to important historical buildings such as the Palacio Real Mayor, seat of the Counts of Barcelona, as well as the Plaza del Rey, which preserves the atmosphere of medieval Barcelona. Another key site in Barcelona's history is Montjuic Castle, a military fortress located on top of the mountain of the same name that has played a strategic role in the defense of the city for centuries. Barcelona is also famous for its avenues and squares, with Plaza de Catalunya and Las Ramblas being two of the most emblematic. Plaza de Catalunya is the heart of the city where the main streets converge and is a meeting point for locals and tourists alike. Las Ramblas, meanwhile, is one of the most famous avenues in the world, a place full of life, with cafes, kiosks and street performers. Walking along Las Ramblas you will come to the Columbus Monument, an imposing column dedicated to the navigator. Another of the city's architectural landmarks is the Palau de la Música Catalana, a modernist concert hall designed by Luis Domènech y Martena, which was built between 1905 and 1908. Park Güell is another of Antonio Gaudi's great projects. Originally conceived as a luxury housing development, the park was transformed into a public space at the beginning of the 20th century. Its design, with organic forms, colorful mosaics and structures that blend in with the natural landscape, reflects Gaudi's imagination and genius. The park is today one of the most visited places in the city and a perfect example of the union between architecture and nature that characterizes Catalan modernism. Zaragoza, capital of the autonomous community of Aragon, is a city with a history spanning more than 2,000 years. It was founded as Caesar Augusta by the Romans in the 1st century BC and has witnessed the passage of Romans, Visigoths, Muslims, and Christians, which has left a deep imprint on its monumental heritage. Its strategic location on the banks of the river Ebro has made it a crossroads since ancient times, playing a crucial role in the history of Spain. One of its main symbols is the Basilica del Pilar, an impressive Baroque temple that dominates the square of the same name, and is also one of the most important pilgrimage centers in the Catholic world. According to tradition, the Virgin Mary appeared to the Apostle St. James on a pillar in this place in the year 40 AD, which marked the beginning of Marian devotion in Zaragoza. Subsequently, the basilica began to be built in the 17th century, with its high towers and domes decorated with colorful tiles, as well as the main altarpiece inside, the work of the sculptor Damian. Opposite the Basilica del Pilar is the Cathedral of the Saviour known as La Seu, another of Zaragoza's great monuments. This majestic building combines architectural styles ranging from Romanesque to Baroque. This temple was built on the site of the old Great Mosque of the city after the Christian reconquest in the 12th century. Zaragoza is also known for its Muslim legacy. The imposing Aljaferia, a fortified palace built in the 11th century during the reign of the Taifars, remains of this legacy. This palace, one of the finest examples of Islamic architecture in Spain, was the residence of the Taifar kings of Saragossa and later became the palace of the Catholic monarchs. Today the Aljaferia houses the Cortes de Aragon, but it remains an important testimony to the city's rich Moorish heritage. Its orange tree courtyard, its horseshoe arches and its rooms decorated with highly detailed plasterwork are particularly noteworthy. Zaragoza's Roman past is another of its great attractions. This is visible in several archaeological remains scattered around the city, such as the Roman theatre discovered in the mid-20th century, which was one of the largest in Roman Hispania. Ávila, located in the autonomous community of Castilla y León, is one of the most historic and monumental cities in Spain. Founded by the Romans and later fortified by the Visigoths and Muslims, the city reached its splendor in the Middle Ages, becoming an important military and religious center. Ávila is especially famous for its impressive medieval walls, which surround the old town, making it one of the best preserved fortified complexes in the world. In 1985, the city was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in recognition of its rich cultural and historical heritage. Ávila's most emblematic monument is its city walls. These were built in the 12th century as a defense against Muslim incursions during the Reconquest. These walls, with a length of 2,500 meters, have 87 towers and 9 monumental gates, the Alcázar Gate and the Gate of San Vicente being the most impressive. The walls not only serve to protect the city, but also reflect the military and strategic importance of Ávila at the time. Another of Ávila's most important monuments is its cathedral, considered to be the first Gothic cathedral in Spain. Its construction began in the 12th century and its external appearance resembles that of a fortress, as part of its walls are integrated into the city walls. The cathedral stands out for its combination of Romanesque and Gothic styles, as well as for its magnificent main altarpiece and cloister. Ávila is also known for being the birthplace of Saint Teresa of Jesus, one of the most influential figures of Christian mysticism. Saint Teresa of Jesus was born in 1515 and founded the Order of the Descalced Carmelites, leaving a profound mark on the religious life of the city. We leave Avila behind to head on this occasion to the Extremaduran town of Merida, famous for its extraordinary Roman legacy. Founded in the year 25 BC by the Roman Emperor Octavian Augustus, Merida was initially known as Emerita Augusta and was created with the purpose of welcoming veteran soldiers who had fought in the Cantabrian Wars. Its foundation not only had a military purpose but also a strategic one, as its location on the silver route that connected the north and south of the Iberian Peninsula gave it great commercial and defensive importance at the time. Merida soon became one of the most important cities in the Roman province of Lusitania, reaching notable splendor in its golden age. The city had an extensive infrastructure that included monuments, temples, aqueducts, theaters, and other buildings that today form part of its impressive archaeological ensemble. This site, declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1993, is one of the largest and best preserved in Spain and offers a privileged window into the life and culture of ancient Rome. Among the most outstanding monuments in Merida is its Roman theatre, one of the best preserved in the world. Built between 16 and 15 BC under the patronage of Agrippa, who was the son-in-law of Emperor Augustus, this theatre was the center of the city's cultural life, and dramatic works and public events were performed there. With a capacity for some 6,000 spectators, the theatre is notable for its monumental stands and its grandiose monumental facade, a wall decorated with columns and sculptures that served as a backdrop. Today the theatre is still in use, and every year it hosts the International Classical Theatre Festival of Merida, which demonstrates the historical continuity of this space. Right next to the theatre is the Roman amphitheatre. Built in the year 8 BC, this building was used for spectacles such as gladiator fights and wild animal hunts. The amphitheatre could hold around 15,000 spectators, and although it is not as well preserved as the theatre, its oval structure is still impressive and gives us a clear view of what these spectacles were like in Roman times. The amphitheatre was a place of popular entertainment and, together with the theatre, formed part of the city's important entertainment complex. Another of Merida's most important monuments is the Arch of Trajan, a monumental gateway to what was once the city's forum. Despite its name, it is not clear whether the arch was built in honor of the Emperor Trajan or whether it existed previously. The arch, more than 15 meters high, is made of large blocks of granite and remains one of the symbols of Roman Merida. Merida is also famous for its aqueducts, which supplied water to the city from distant sources. The most important of these is the Aqueduct of Miracles, built in the 1st century AD, which brought water from the Proserpina reservoir. This aqueduct is especially known for its great height and the use of brick and stone in its construction, which gives it a characteristic and monumental appearance. Although only part of the original aqueduct has survived, its remains are imposing enough to give us an idea of the skill of the Roman engineers. In addition to the monuments, Merida preserves other buildings of great historical interest such as the Temple of Diana, a space dedicated to the imperial cult and which was probably one of the most important religious buildings in this city in Roman times. The city of Cordoba, located in the autonomous community of Andalusia, is one of the most important cities in the history of Spain thanks to its great cultural heritage and its influence during the time of the Umayyad Caliphate. It was founded by the Romans in the 2nd century BC and reached its peak of splendor during the Muslim domination when it was the capital of the Emirate of Cordoba and later the Caliphate of Cordoba in the 10th century. Under the Caliphate, the city became one of the cultural, political and economic centers, with a population of over 500,000. Cordoba's most emblematic monument is undoubtedly the Mosque Cathedral, which reflects the city's complex religious history. Originally built as a mosque under Emir Abderrahman I in 785, it was enlarged several times over the centuries to reflect the growing power of the Emirate and Caliphate. Its hypostyle hall, with hundreds of marble columns and two-tone horseshoe arches, is one of the most iconic spaces in Islamic architecture. After the Christian reconquest in 1236 by King Ferdinand III, the mosque was consecrated as a cathedral, and a large Renaissance nave was built inside, merging two architectural and cultural styles in a single building. Another of Cordoba's great monuments is the Alcázar de los Reyes Cristianos, a fortress palace that was once the royal residence and seat of the Inquisition tribunal. This building, which also has Roman and Muslim roots, was built in the 14th century by order of King Alfonso X after the reconquest of the city. Its gardens, fountains, and courtyards are an example of the fusion of Islamic and Christian cultures, and inside you can find Roman mosaics and archaeological remains that bear witness to the antiquity of Cordoba. Cordoba also stands out for its Roman bridge that crosses the Guadalquivir River and connects the historic center with the Campo de la Verdad. Built in the 1st century BC by the Romans, the bridge has been rebuilt several times over the centuries, but it remains one of the most important and oldest infrastructures in the city. On the other side of the bridge is the Calahorra Tower, a fortification that has served as a defensive point and now houses a museum on the history of the three cultures that coexisted in Cordoba: Christian, Muslim and Jewish. The Jewish quarter of Cordoba is another of the city's key historical spaces. Once home to a thriving Jewish community during the Middle Ages, this neighborhood is an intricate network of cobbled alleyways and flowery courtyards that preserves the atmosphere of its past. Inside is the Cordoba Synagogue, one of the few remaining synagogues in Spain, built in 1315 and notable for its rich decoration in the Muda style. Cordoba was also home to the famous Palatine city of Medina Azahara, built on the outskirts of the city by Caliph Abderrahman III in the 10th century as a symbol of the power of the Umayyad Caliphate. Although today the city is in ruins, Medina Azahara was once one of the most luxurious and sophisticated cities in the Islamic world. We continue in Andalusia to Seville, one of Spain's most fascinating cities. With a history dating back to the time of Rome, and with a monumental legacy that makes it a world-class cultural destination, its historical importance is undeniable, having been a key political, economic and cultural center at various stages of Spain's history. From Roman Hispania to the era of the discovery of America, the city was a strategic point during Muslim rule, and after the Christian reconquest it consolidated its position as one of the main ports for trade with the Americas. One of Seville's most emblematic monuments is the Cathedral of Santa Maria de la Cid, the largest Gothic cathedral in the world. Built in the 15th century on the remains of the old Almohad Mosque, the cathedral is one of Spain's great architectural wonders. Inside is the tomb of Christopher Columbus, underlining Seville's importance as a gateway to the New World. Also of note is its imposing main altarpiece, the largest Gothic altarpiece in Christendom, and its marvelous art collection, which includes works by painters such as Zurbarán and Murillo. The choir and the royal chapel are other spaces that attract attention for their rich decoration. Next to the cathedral stands the Giralda, the old minaret of the mosque which was transformed into the cathedral's bell tower after the reconquest of the Gironde. At over 100 meters high, the Giralda is one of the most recognizable symbols of the city, mixing Islamic and Renaissance architectural elements. From the top of the Giralda you can enjoy breathtaking panoramic views of Seville, offering an unparalleled perspective of its old town. The Real Alcázar is another of the city's great monuments, a fortified palace that has witnessed Seville's history since the Muslim era. The Alcázar was originally built as a fortress for the Almohads in the 11th century, but was transformed into a palace for the Christian kings after the reconquest. Its Muda Palace, ordered to be built by Pedro I of Castile, is a real gem. Its elegant courtyards, gardens, and decorative tiles reflect the perfect fusion of Islamic and Christian architecture. Another of Seville's great monumental spaces is the Plaza de España. Built for the Ibero-American Exposition of 1929, this enormous architectural complex in the regionalist style was designed by the architect Aníbal González and has become one of the most visited places in the city. With its majestic semicircular shape surrounded by a canal and bridges, the square pays homage to the provinces of Spain with tiled benches representing each of them. Seville's history is deeply linked to the discovery of America and its subsequent colonization. After the discovery of the New World in 1492, Seville became the exclusive port for trade with America. The Archivo General de Indias, which houses millions of documents related to the Spanish colonization of America, bears witness to the importance of the city at that time. This archive, located next to the cathedral and Alcázar, was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO and is a must-see for history lovers. Another place of great historical and cultural importance in Seville is the Torre del Oro, a defense tower built by the Almohads in the 13th century. With the purpose of controlling access to the port from the Guadalquivir River, the tower has had different uses throughout history, from prison to storage of treasures brought from America, and currently houses a naval museum that reviews the great maritime history of the city. Palos de la Frontera, a small town in the province of Huelva, is one of the most important places in the history of the discovery of America. Despite its modest size, Palos de la Frontera played a key role in one of the most momentous events in world history, the first voyage of Christopher Columbus in 1492, which led to the discovery of the New World. A site of great significance in Palos is the Monasterio de la Rábida, a place deeply linked to the Columbian heroic deed. This Franciscan monastery, located on the outskirts of the town, was where Columbus found refuge and support in times of great uncertainty. There the navigator was welcomed by the monks, who offered him sustenance and helped him connect with influential people at the Spanish court. The Mule de las Carabelas is today an important place of commemoration. Here you will find life-size replicas of the three caravels that took part in the voyage, La Santa Maria, La Pinta, and La Nina. This space has become a center of reference for those who wish to relive the epic of discovery. The dock is not only a symbol of the start of the voyage, but also offers an educational insight into life on board the ships at the time, showing what sailing was like and the conditions faced by the crew on their voyage to America. Granada, located in the heart of Andalusia, is one of the most fascinating cities in Spain due to its great multicultural heritage and its impressive monumental heritage. Granada was the last bastion of the Nasrid kingdom, and its history is deeply marked by the coexistence of three cultures: Muslim, Christian, and Jewish. Its splendor began during Muslim rule, especially from the 13th century onwards, when it was consolidated as an independent kingdom under the Nasrid dynasty. However, its history is also linked to the Christian reconquest, when the Catholic monarchs took it in 1492, thus closing a key chapter in the history of Spain. Granada's most famous monument, and one of the most important in the world, is the Alhambra, a palace complex and fortress that towers majestically over the city. Built mainly between the 13th and 14th centuries by the Nasrid monarchs, the Alhambra is a symbol of the refinement of Islamic civilization in Spain. Inside are the Nasrid palaces, which stand out for their exquisite decoration in plasterwork, tiles and corford ceilings, as well as for their beautiful courtyards such as the Courtyard of the Lions. Next to this, the General Life, the Summer Gardens of the Sultans, offers an oasis of tranquility with fountains and terraces full of vegetation. Another monumental space of great importance is the Cathedral of Granada, a magnificent example of the Spanish Renaissance. Its construction began in 1523 on the orders of Emperor Charles I and was designed by the architect Diego de Silo. The cathedral was erected on the site of the old Great Mosque of Granada, symbolizing the triumph of Christianity after the Reconquest. Its imposing facade, its spacious interior with white columns, and its chapels make it one of the masterpieces of Spanish sacred art. Next to the cathedral is the Royal Chapel, where the bodies of the Catholic monarchs Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon rest, which reinforces the historical importance of Granada as the place where the Reconquest culminated. The Albaicin, Granada's old Moorish quarter, is another of the city's key sites. This quarter, which was the heart of Islamic Granada, preserves its medieval structure of steep, narrow streets, whitewashed houses and hidden gardens. From the Mirador de San Nicolas in the Albaicin, you can enjoy an unrivaled panoramic view of the Alhambra with the Sierra Nevada mountains as a backdrop. The monastery of San Geronimo is another of Granada's great monuments. This Renaissance monastery built in the 16th century is notable for its imposing church and harmonious cloister, and is a testament to the importance of the city after the Reconquest when it was promoted as a Christian religious and cultural center. The monastery is also famous for being the burial place of Gonzalo Fernández de Cordoba, known as El Gran Capitan, one of the great military men of Spanish history. We leave Andalusia behind us and head towards Castilla-La Mancha, specifically to its capital. Toledo, one of the most emblematic cities in Spain and famous for its millenary history, its great cultural heritage and its impressive architecture, is located on a hill surrounded by the Tagus River. Toledo has been a melting pot of cultures where Christians, Muslims, and Jews have coexisted for centuries, earning it the title of City of Three Cultures. Declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1986, its old quarter is a labyrinth of narrow streets and monuments that reflect the historical complexity of this city, which was the capital of the Visigothic kingdom and later of medieval Spain under the Christian monarchy. One of Toledo's most important monuments is its Primate Cathedral, one of the grandest Gothic cathedrals in Europe. Its construction began in 1226 under the reign of Ferdinand III, and continued for more than 2 centuries, allowing the incorporation of Tudor and Renaissance Gothic elements. The cathedral stands out for its facade, tower, and magnificent interior, which houses an impressive collection of sacred art, including works by El Greco and Goya. The transparent, the choir, and the main chapel with its imposing Gothic altarpiece are some of the most outstanding areas, together with the monstrance of Arf, a jewel of Spanish goldsmithery. The Alcázar of Toledo is another of the symbols of the city. This fortress has played a key role in the history of Toledo, from Roman times to the 20th century. Rebuilt on several occasions, the Alcázar has been a royal residence and a military fortress. Its current appearance is the result of reconstructions carried out after the Spanish Civil War, in which the Alcázar was the scene of its famous siege. The building now houses the Army Museum and offers spectacular views of the city. The Jewish quarter of Toledo is another of the most evocative areas of the Old Quarter. It is a place where the legacy of the Jewish community that lived in the city until its expulsion in 1492 is preserved. In this neighborhood there are 2 important Jewish temples that are still not worshipped today, the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca and the Synagogue of El Transito. The former was built in the 12th century and is a jewel of Tudor architecture, with an interior decorated with horseshoe arches and beautifully sculpted capitals. The second, the Synagogue of El Transito, is a masterpiece of Tudor art built in the 14th century. This place also houses the Sephardic Museum, which offers an in-depth look at Jewish culture in medieval Spain. Another key monument in the city is the monastery of San Juan de los Reyes, founded by the Catholic monarchs in the 15th century to commemorate their victory at the Battle of Toro. This Elizabethan Gothic monastery stands out mainly for its beautiful low cloister. San Juan de los Reyes is a testimony to the greatness of the reign of Isabella and Ferdinand and their intention to make Toledo a center of spiritual and political power. On the other hand, its old quarter is a veritable open-air museum where every corner tells a story. Its narrow, winding streets, cobbled squares and medieval buildings transport the visitor to another era. Among the most notable places in the Old Town is the Plaza del Zocadova, the heart of the city's social life since the Middle Ages, as well as being the ideal starting point for exploring the surrounding area. Nearby are also the Alcantara Bridge and the San Martin Bridge, which cross the Tagus River and offer spectacular views of the city and its natural surroundings. Toledo was the capital of the Visigothic kingdom in the 6th century, and after the Muslim conquest in 711, it became an important center of Al-Andalus. In 1085, King Alfonso VI reconquered the city, marking a turning point in the Christian reconquest. The royal monastery of San Lorenzo del Escorial is one of Spain's most emblematic architectural and historical jewels. Located in the Sierra de Guadarrama, some 50 kilometers northwest of Madrid, it was commissioned by King Philip II in 1563, and its construction lasted until 1584. This monumental building is not only a symbol of the power of the Spanish monarchy during the Golden Age, but also reflects the religious fervor of Philip II and his desire to centralize political and spiritual power in a single space. The royal monastery of El Escorial was erected for several purposes. Firstly, it was conceived as a place of eternal rest for the members of the House of Austria, the dynasty to which Philip II belonged. The king himself wished to be buried there, and since then the royal pantheon has housed the remains of numerous kings and queens of Spain. The historical importance of El Escorial lies not only in its function as a royal mausoleum, but also in its role as a political, cultural, and religious center. The monastery housed an important library which at the time was one of the richest in Europe, containing thousands of manuscripts and works of great value. The library reflected Philip II's interest in knowledge, science, and culture at a time when Spain was experiencing an unprecedented cultural expansion. In addition, the monastery was a symbol of the imperial power of the Spanish monarchy, which then controlled vast territories in Europe, America, and Asia. The architectural design of the monastery was commissioned to the architect Juan Bautista de Toledo, although after his death it was continued by his disciple Juan de Herrera, who introduced the Herrerian style that characterizes the Escorial. This style is distinguished by its austerity, straight lines, and monumental symmetry, reflecting the sobriety and rigor of the Catholicism of the Counter-Reformation, the period in which the building was constructed. Today the Escorial monastery continues to fulfill several important functions. It has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1984 and is one of Spain's main tourist attractions. Inside the monastery there are many places of interest. The basilica is one of the most impressive, with its grandiose main altar and architecture that evokes the spiritual grandeur that Philip II wished to project. Our route through historic Spain ends in Madrid, the country's capital. Although its importance began to be consolidated in the 16th century, its origins date back to the Muslim era when it was founded as Merit in the 9th century by Emir Muhammad I of Cordoba. This small fortress defended access to Toledo, a place that over time developed thanks to its strategic location in the center of the Iberian Peninsula. However, its real transformation began when King Philip II decided to move the court to Madrid from Toledo in 1561, making it the capital of the Kingdom of Spain. One of the city's most emblematic monuments is the Royal Palace of Madrid, the official residence of the Spanish monarchy. Although today it is mainly used for state ceremonies, this majestic building, built in the 18th century on the site of the former Alcázar of Madrid, is one of the largest palaces in Europe. Its Baroque and neoclassical architecture, together with its impressive halls decorated with works of art, tapestries, and furniture, make it a symbol of the power and history of the Spanish monarchy. Another of Madrid's great monuments is the Almudena Cathedral, located next to the Royal Palace. The construction of this cathedral began in 1883, and was not completed until 1993, when it was consecrated by Pope John Paul II. Its neoclassical facade contrasts with its more modern interior, and its impressive dome, from where you can enjoy a panoramic view of the city. Madrid is also famous for its large squares and avenues, including the Puerta del Sol, the kilometer zero of Spain's radial roads and one of the busiest spots in the city. Another highlight is the Plaza Mayor, a monumental Baroque-style square surrounded by arcades that has been the scene of markets, bullfights, celebrations, and executions for centuries. Today it is a lively place where traditional events and markets, such as the Christmas market, are held. Art and culture are fundamental pillars in Madrid. The Prado Museum, inaugurated in 1819, houses one of the most valuable art collections in the world, with masterpieces by artists such as Velázquez, Goya, Bosch, and Rubens. The Reina Sofia Museum is home to Picasso's iconic painting Guernica and is dedicated to contemporary art. The Thyssen-Bornemisza Museum completes this triangle with a collection ranging from Renaissance to modern art. Another of Madrid's great emblems is the Retiro Park, one of the city's green lungs and a place of relaxation and leisure for locals and tourists alike. This historic park, designed in the 17th century as part of the Buen Retiro Palace, is home to gardens, statues, fountains, and monuments such as the Crystal Palace and the large pond. We cannot talk about Madrid without mentioning its history as the capital of the Spanish Empire and its central role in Spanish politics. From the Habsburgs to the Bourbons, the city has been the scene of important historical episodes such as the War of Independence against the French in the early 19th century, or the Spanish Civil War in the 20th century. Monuments such as the Puerta de Alcalá, the Temple of Debod, or the Metropolis building on Gran Via form part of the urban landscape of a city that has managed to combine its great history with modernity. This is the end of our journey through Spain's historical legacy. A country where every corner has a story to tell, from the spirituality of Santiago de Compostela to the vibrancy of Barcelona, the monumentality of LEÓN, MERIDA, or Seville, as well as the Nasrid splendor of Granada, the medieval charm of Toledo, or the modernity of Madrid, among others. Each city is witness to centuries of culture, tradition, and diversity that continue to pulsate in each of its streets.